Hello, everybody, and welcome to week number 13 of the 2017 NFL season and my predictions. Coming off of a pretty good week. Last week, it was a full rack of games, no bye weeks last week or for the remainder of the year. 16 games. I went 14-2 last week. I will take that. And of course, let's just jump into all of those games from last week before going ahead and predicting all the games this week. We started on Thanksgiving. It was the Minnesota Vikings in Detroit taking on my Detroit Lions. I picked the Vikings to win. By the time I recorded last week's video, it was Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. So I got my picks in, but the game had already happened, so I didn't really go into detail why I picked the Vikings. But just as a Lions fan, typical game for the Lions to lose. Felt like they would, and they do. They were on a winning streak, but they were playing bad teams and not really winning convincingly. So I wasn't totally convinced that they would come in and beat the Vikings, and now their chances of winning the division are basically over. And they're going to have a tough time making the wild card because the NFC wild cards are going to probably be 11-5. So, not much to talk about there. The next game was the Chargers in Dallas on Thanksgiving. I went with the Cowboys at home to get the win. I just felt like they would get it done, but they are truly an awful team without Ezekiel Elliott. They lose 28-6. The Chargers outgained them 515-247. Cowboys turn it over twice, both of them on interceptions. Dak Prescott sucks. Dak Prescott goes 20 for 27. 179 yards, and the 2 interceptions. Philip Rivers, 27 for 33, 434 yards, and 3 touchdowns. This game was actually 0-0 till about the end of the first half. But then the Chargers took over in the second half. Only 79 yards rushing for the Cowboys, only 81 for the Chargers. But Keenan Allen for the Chargers had 11 catches for 172 yards and a touchdown. So the Chargers win yet again. They're now 5-6 on the season, and they've now won, they've won 2 in a row, and they had that 3-game winning streak. But they did have 2 losses sandwiched in between that. But they are 5-6, so who knows, maybe they can keep it up. They may not be out of things. And then the nightcap for Thanksgiving, it was the New York Giants on the road against the Washington Redskins. Home, primetime, Redskins much better than the Giants. I picked the Redskins. They win that game 20-10. It was actually a tied game going into the fourth quarter, but the Redskins are able to add a late touchdown to take the lead and then another field goal near the end of the game to make it that 10-point lead. The Redskins outgained the Giants 323-170. So that explains why Eli Manning is being benched. He had Manning was 13 for 27, 113 yards and an interception. Kirk Cousins 19 for 31, 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 122 yards rushing for the Redskins. Perrine at 100 of those, only 84 yards rushing as a team for the Giants. Nothing to speak of through the air for the Giants. Jamison Crowder for the Redskins had 7 catches, 141 yards, and a touchdown. So then we got into Sunday. First game, it was the Buffalo Bills on the road against the Kansas City Chiefs. Actually, scratch that. It was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road against the Atlanta Falcons. I rolled with the Falcons, as did 97% of people on ESPN.com, and they win. They get to win 34-20. They outgained the Buccaneers 516-373. Atlanta had the lone turnover in the game, actually. At halftime, Falcons were up 20-6, and they just kind of coast from there, although the Buccaneers did make it a 7-point game early in the fourth, but were unable to get back on the board, and the Falcons add on a late touchdown to put the game away. Matt Ryan was 26 for 35, 317 yards and a touchdown. Ryan Fitzpatrick was 27 for 44, 283 yards, 94 yards rushing for the Buccaneers, 148 yards rushing for the Falcons. Tevin Coleman had 97 yards and 2 touchdowns on 19 carries. Julio Jones finally emerges for the Falcons. He has 12 catches, 253 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then we had the Buffalo Bills on the road against the Kansas City Chiefs. I and 92% of people went with the Chiefs. Bills had 2 bad losses in a row, but then they pulled off the upset. Remember when Kansas City was the last undefeated team in the NFL? Yeah, they are suddenly 6-5 and so are the Bills. They get a much-needed win. The Bills actually took a 10-0 lead in this game, and it was 13-3 at the end of the first half. The Chiefs get a touchdown early in the third to make it a 3-point game. The Bills respond with a field goal to make it a 6-point game, 16-10, and that was the end of the scoring. The Bills hang on for the win. They outgained the Chiefs 268-236, so not a lot of offense for either team. Alex Smith was 23 for 36, 199 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Tyrod Taylor was 19 for 29, 183 yards, and a touchdown. 104 yards rushing for the Bills, only 55 yards rushing for the Chiefs. Nothing through the air for either team. So that was the second game, and the only 2 games we got wrong last week. Then we had the Bears on the road against the Eagles. Bears suck, Eagles are good. Eagles were at home, easy pick. They win 31-3. Not a whole lot to talk about, just complete domination. They outgained the Bears 420-140. They had 24 first downs to the Bears' 8. Mitch Trubisky goes 17 for 33, 147 yards, 2 interceptions. Carson Wentz, 23 for 36, 227 yards, 3 touchdowns. LeGarrette Blount leads the way for the Eagles with 97 yards rushing on 15 carries. Eagles had 176 yards rushing as a team. Only 6 yards rushing for the Bears, led by Mitch Trubisky's 12 yards on 4 carries. Not a lot through the air for the Bears. Zach Ertz leads the way for the Eagles with 103 yards and a touchdown on 10 catches. Then that brings us to the Battle of Ohio. The 0-10 Cleveland Browns were in Cincinnati against the 4-6 Bengals. Bengals win easily. They win 30-16. So who knows? 5 more games to go for the Browns. Maybe they get to that 0-16. The Browns actually outgained the Bengals in this game 405-361, and neither team turned it over. But the Browns were just unable to finish drives. DeShone Kizer goes 18 for 31, 268 yards. Andy Dalton goes 18 for 28, 214 yards, 2 touchdowns. 169 yards rushing for the Browns. Isaiah Crowell leads the way with 95 yards on 16 carries, 152 yards rushing for the Bengals. Joe Mixon finally shows up to the NFL. He had 114 yards and a touchdown on 23 carries. Not a lot through the air for either team. Bengals get the win. And who knows? Maybe the Bengals can do something down the stretch as well. Another team that started off bad, just like the Chargers, but have been making improvements. Then we had the Titans 7-4, 6-4 on the road against the 3-7 Colts. I went with the Titans, and they just pull it out to get to 7-4. They win 20-16. They outgained the Colts 276-254. The Titans turned it over twice. Colts turned it over once. Titans took a 6-0 lead into the second quarter, where the Colts end up scoring 16 straight points in this game to go up 16-6. Titans get a touchdown late in the third to make it 16-13, and then they get a touchdown with just under 6 minutes to go to take the 20-16 lead, which they held on to. Jacoby Brissett goes 19 for 29, 196 yards for the Colts. Marcus Mariota 17 for 25, 184 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, so not a very good game for him. 92 yards rushing for the Titans, 89 for the Colts, and not a whole lot through the air, obviously. But we got the pick right as the Titans pick up the win. Then we had the Patriots at home against the Dolphins. Pretty easy pick here. Obviously went with the Patriots, and they win. They win 35-17. They outgained the Dolphins 417-221. Dolphins turn it over 3 times. Matt Moore goes 23 for 34, 215 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Tom Brady, 18 for 28, 227 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 196 yards rushing for the Patriots, led by Deion Lewis's 112 yards on 15 carries, only 67 yards rushing for the Dolphins. Then we had the Panthers on the road against the Jets. I went with the Panthers, and they win 35-27. Pretty back and forth game, actually. At halftime, it was 12-10 Panthers. Jets take the lead in the third with a touchdown. Panthers retake the lead with a touchdown of their own. A 1-point lead at that point. Jets take a 2-point lead off a field goal early in the fourth. Panthers respond with a defensive touchdown, and that gives them a 6-point lead. Then they get another touchdown on a punt return, only 3 plays later, and that pretty much put the game away. Jets do get another touchdown with 5:30 to go down 5, but then the Panthers just kill pretty much all the clock there was left and add on a field goal with only 20 seconds left in the game. And the Jets obviously were unable to go down the field and score and tie it with the 2-point conversion. But the Jets did outgain the Panthers 391 to 299, but they had the one turnover in the game. Josh McCown goes 19 for 36, 370 yards, 3 touchdowns. Cam Newton 11 for 28, 168 yards. Nothing to talk about there. 145 yards rushing for the Panthers, led by Christian McCaffrey, 62 yards on only 7 carries. 109 yards rushing for the Jets. And the Jets had 2 guys over 100 yards receiving. Robbie Anderson, 6 catches, 146 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And Jermaine Kearse, 7 catches, 105 yards, and a touchdown. In the loss, which brings us to Seattle on the road against the 49ers, went with the Seahawks. They win this game 24 to 13. Not a whole lot to speak of in this game. Not a lot of offense for either team, really. Only 318 yards for the Seahawks, 280 for the 49ers. CJ Beathard goes 22 for 38, 201 yards and an interception. Jimmy Garoppolo came in at the end of the game. He goes 2 for 2, 18 yards and a touchdown in garbage time. Last play of the game, I believe. Russell Wilson, 20 for 34, 228 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interceptions, 90 yards rushing for the Seahawks, 84 for the 49ers. Not a lot through the air for an individual player. That brings us to the Raiders at home against the Broncos. Went with the Raiders, and they get it done 21 to 14. Raiders really needed that win. They're now up to 5-6. The Broncos fall to 3-8. This game was 28-0 early, or halfway through the third quarter. Broncos get 2 garbage touchdowns in the fourth quarter. The last one with under 3 minutes to go. Unable to get the ball back. Raiders win. They outgained the Broncos 348 to 219. Each team turned it over once. Trevor Siemian for the Broncos, 11 for 21, 149 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Paxton Lynch, who started the game, was 9 for 14, 41 yards, 1 interception. Not good. Derek Carr for the Raiders, 18 for 24, 253 yards, 2 touchdowns. Pretty good game for him. Marshawn Lynch led the way for the Raiders with 67 yards and a touchdown on 26 carries. Raiders had 104 yards rushing as a team. Broncos only 59. And as mentioned, big win for the Raiders, which brings us to the Los Angeles Rams at home against the Saints. I went with the Rams, and the majority of people actually went with the Saints on ESPN.com. Kind of surprising, but the Rams pull it out. They win 26 to 20. Although the Saints never led, it was kind of back and forth. It was just that the Rams jumped out to a 2-possession lead, 10-0. Saints get a touchdown, Rams get a touchdown, Saints get a field goal, Rams add 2 field goals, take a 13-point lead. Saints get a field goal, Rams get a field goal, Saints get a touchdown near the end of the game to make it a 6-point game, but are unable to get the ball back. Rams outgained the Saints 415 to 346. Rams had the 1 turnover in the game off of an interception. Jared Goff, 28 for 43, 354 yards, 2 touchdowns, and that aforementioned interception. Drew Brees, 22 for 32, 246 yards and a touchdown. 123 yards rushing for the Saints, 88 for the Rams. Cooper Kupp for the Rams actually led the game in receiving yards and receptions, 8 catches for 116 yards. Then we had the Jaguars on the road against the Cardinals. 87% of people picked the Jaguars. I wasn't one of them. They were due for a letdown. They've been up and down most of the year, despite being 7-3 coming into this game. I also just realized all these records I've been saying have been wrong, because I'm looking at the ESPN.com pick'em, and the records that they're showing are the records from the week going into the game. I thought they were updated, but they weren't. So when I said the Browns were 0-11, they're actually 0-12, blah, blah, you get the idea. Anyway, Jaguars, what I was saying was the Jaguars have been up and down all year despite the winning record. On the road against the Cardinals, who are a decent team, I just felt like the Cardinals would get it done, and they do. They win 27-24. So a big upset pick in my favor in terms of ESPN.com. That feels good. They actually outgained their Jaguars 344 to 219. Jaguars turned it over 3 times. Cardinals turned it over twice. Blaine Gabbert for the Cardinals, 22 for 38, 241 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Revenge game for him against the Jaguars. Blake Bortles, 19 for 33, 160 yards and an interception. Not good. 91 yards rushing for the Jaguars, led by Blake Bortles, 62 yards and 2 touchdowns on 6 carries. 108 yards rushing for the Cardinals, led by Adrian Peterson, 79 yards on 20 carries. Not a lot through the air for receivers, stats-wise. Cardinals were actually in front 13-0 and 16-3 early in the third quarter. Jaguars scored 2 straight touchdowns to take a 17-16 lead early in the fourth. Cardinals respond with a touchdown to take the 24-17 lead after a 2-point conversion. Jaguars tied up with 7:26 to go with a touchdown of their own, and then as time expires, Phil Dawson hits a 57-yard field goal, and the Cardinals win. Jaguars, I don't remember exactly what happened, but they made a bad decision which left time on the clock and gave the Cardinals a chance to kick that field goal. Probably should have went to overtime. Then we had the Packers on the road against the Steelers. Steelers win 38-28, but Packers actually played a pretty good game with Brett Hundley. They gained 307 yards of offense, but the Steelers had 462, and the Steelers turned it over 3 times to none. So really, this game should have been not as close as it was, but you still got to give some credit to the Packers. Ben Roethlisberger goes 33 for 45, 351 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Brett Hundley, 17 for 26, 245 yards, 3 touchdowns. So actually a pretty darn good game for him. Only 80 yards rushing for the Packers, 121 for the Steelers. Antonio Brown, 10 catches, 169 yards, 2 touchdowns. But yeah, actually a back and forth game for the majority of this game. Steelers jumped out in front, take a 6-0 lead after failing the 2-point conversion. I believe it actually doesn't say, but I know that Mike Tomlin likes to go for 2 all the time. Anyway, Packers get 2 straight touchdowns to take a 14-6 lead. Steelers get a touchdown in the second quarter and the 2-point conversion to tie it up. Packers get a touchdown in the third to go back up 7. Steelers get a touchdown with under a minute to go in the third to tie it back up. Then the Steelers get another touchdown halfway through the fourth. Packers tie the game up with 2 minutes to go, and then a 53-yard field goal from Chris Boswell as time expires gives the Steelers the win. Which brings us to Monday Night Football. The Ravens at home against the Texans. I went with the Ravens. I actually said they would win 20-13. Pretty close. They win 23-16. Each team scored an extra field goal than I anticipated. Anyway, Ravens actually outgained by the Texans without Deshaun Watson, 303-294. But the Texans turned over 3 times to none. Otherwise, Texans very much could have won this game. Tom Savage goes 22 for 37, 252 yards, and 2 interceptions for the Texans. Joe Flacco, 20 for 32, 141 yards. Not pretty. 139 yards rushing for the Ravens, 66 for the Texans. DeAndre Hopkins, though, for the Texans, 7 catches, 125 yards. Texans actually had the 7-0 lead in this game. Ravens go into the halftime with a 17-10 lead. Texans make it a 4-point game, 17-13 going into the fourth. Ravens add on a field goal to put it back to 7. Texans respond with a field goal with 8:30 to go back down 4. Ravens add another field goal near the end of the game to go back up 7. And the Texans are unable to do anything. So, after last week, as I mentioned, pretty darn good, 14-2 on the week, which puts my season total after 12 weeks of NFL football at 115-61. Pretty happy about that. It's actually in the top 29,000 of ESPN.com, which is in the top 97 percentile. So pretty good. Hopefully we can improve on that as we go to week number 13. And it starts, of course, with Thursday Night Football. The Dallas Cowboys at home against the Washington Redskins. Cowboys have done absolutely nothing since losing Ezekiel Elliott. And quite frankly, I didn't think they're a very good team with him anyway. And they're against the Redskins, who have been up and down all year, at home, primetime. I'm going with the underdog. I'm going with the Cowboys to pull it off at home against the Redskins. Just because, yeah, I don't think they're very good, but I think they're due for a good performance. They're at home, primetime, Redskins up and down. NFC East game, these are always 50-50. I'm going with the Cowboys to win this one. Then we have the Minnesota Vikings at 9-2 on the road against the 7-4 Atlanta Falcons. It looks like just, I'd say, 55% of people on ESPN.com going with the Vikings on the road. I'm not a big fan of that pick. Vikings have been very good. I think they've won 6 in a row or something. But I'm going to show some confidence in the defending NFC champions at home late in the season. Looks like Julio Jones might finally be getting it done, at least getting in the end zone. I like the Falcons to pull this one off and maybe actually make Case Keenum look like Case Keenum for once. So give me the Falcons to beat the Vikings. Then we have the Patriots on the road against the Bills. Patriots started off rough, but they are 9-2, of course. On the road against the Bills. Bills were looking like a pretty good team till they got crushed 2 weeks in a row, but they come back with an impressive win last week on the road against the Chiefs. Now they're back home. Huge underdogs, according to ESPN.com pick'em users. And it wouldn't surprise me to see the Bills win this game. It seems like the Bills are good for beating the Patriots in Buffalo pretty often. But, of course, I'm going with what is most likely to happen, and that is that the Patriots win this game on the road in Buffalo. Then we have the toilet bowl of the week. It is the 1-10 San Francisco 49ers on the road against the 3-8 Chicago Bears. Who really cares? I'm going to go with the Bears at home because both these teams are bad, and I think the Bears maybe have the better quarterback. Then we have the 3-8 Denver Broncos on the road against the 4-7 Miami Dolphins. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think... Maybe I picked the Dolphins once. I've either never picked the Dolphins or I picked them once. But the Broncos have been awful. And they're on the road. So even though I think the Dolphins aren't very good at all, I'm going to not pick the team that has lost 7 games in a row, who are also on the road. So give me the Dolphins at home to beat the Broncos. Then we have my Detroit Lions on the road against the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens are 6-5, Lions are 6-5. Ravens are not a good team. They're at home. Most people going with the Lions. Most people aren't Lions fans. That's why they're wrong. Ravens win as the worst team. Flacco throws 3 interceptions, but the Lions find a way to lose. Give me the Ravens over the Lions. And once again, some of these ESPN.com picks just crack me up. Green Bay Packers, massive favorites at home against the Buccaneers. Now look, yes, the Buccaneers aren't very good. Yes, the Packers are at home. Yes, it's cold, team from Florida going up north. That could play into it, certainly. But Brett Hundley's their quarterback. I know he had a good game last week. And the Packers actually looked like a pretty good team last week on the road against the Steelers. But, I mean, for 90% of people on ESPN.com to be picking the Packers, I don't buy into that. I thought it was silly when most of them were picking them to win against, who was it? The Bears, I think? No, the Ravens. Yeah, most people picked them to beat the Ravens. They got destroyed by the Ravens. So I'm actually going with the Buccaneers. I think they beat the Packers. Packers aren't a good team without Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry. Then we have the Titans at home, 7-4 against the Houston Texans. Big game for them in the AFC South as they are tied with the Jaguars. I'm going to go with the Titans at home to beat Tom Savage and the Texans. Speaking of the AFC South, it is those 7-4 Jaguars also at home against the 3-8 Indianapolis Colts. Jaguars up and down, up and down, up and down. They lost last week. They're going to win this week. Give me the Jaguars over the Colts. Then we have the Chiefs. Been struggling a lot lately on the road against the 4-7 New York Jets. If the Chiefs are going to break out of this slump and get back to being closer to the team they were to start the season, I think this week is a good week to do it on the road against a team like the Jets. So give me the Chiefs to go into New York and get the win. And then we have the 0-11 Cleveland Browns on the road against the 5-6 Los Angeles Chargers. Last year, I correctly predicted, I wasn't doing these videos, but I did predict it. I could go back and show you on my pick'em if you don't believe me. I picked the I picked the Browns to beat the Chargers last year. I think that was the only game I picked the Browns to win. And that was the only win that the Browns got. I think it was week 15 or week 16. It was their second to last game. And I just felt like, Chargers weren't very good. They're going on the road as a West Coast team in the Eastern time zone. Cold weather against a team desperate for a win. It just had all the recipes for the Browns to get their first win. So I picked the Browns to win that game, but not this year. They're in LA this year. Browns are on the road. And just because I promised I'll never pick the Browns this year after I picked them 3 times in the first 5 weeks. Anyway, Chargers win over the Browns. Then we have the New York Giants benching Eli Manning, 2-9 on the road against the 5-6 Oakland Raiders. Easy pick here. Raiders win this game, or at least they should. They have to. No way. Well, there's a way. Trust me, it wouldn't surprise me if the Raiders completely choke on this one. But I'm trusting the Raiders. Raiders beat the Giants. Then we go to the NFC West. It is the Los Angeles Rams on the road against the Arizona Cardinals. I'm going to go ahead and say this is going to be a good game. But I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Rams to pull it out on the road. And then we have a huge game in the NFC South. It is the 8-3 Panthers on the road against the 8-3 Saints. Whenever the Saints are good, as they are this year, I'm going to like them at home. So I'm going with the Saints to pull it out against the Panthers. Then Sunday Night Football, it is the 10-1 Philadelphia Eagles on the road against the Seattle Seahawks. Now look, Eagles are a very good team, and I think the Eagles are a better team than the Seahawks. But when you're 10-1, they're going to be favored the rest of the way. They're favored in this game, I assume, and 80% of people, it looks like, are taking them on ESPN.com. But they are due to lose another game. They're not going to go 15-1, most likely. On the road in Seattle, primetime game, I like Seattle in this one, so give me the Seahawks to give the Eagles their second loss of the year. Following that mindset, we got the 9-2 Steelers on the road against the 5-6 Cincinnati Bengals on Monday Night Football. I actually picked the Bengals to win this game, but I'm switching it up. Hopefully this doesn't come back to bite me, as it might, but I just realized the Bengals suck at primetime, home or away, and they're not a very good team. I was thinking they were going to pull off the upset at home against the Steelers, but I'm changing my mind right here as I record this video. The Steelers will beat the Bengals on the road. So thank you everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, please feel free to comment below with your thoughts on any of my predictions or any of your predictions for this week in the NFL. And of course, subscribe for next week's video where we break down all these games I just predicted and predict all the games for next week. Coming down the stretch. Should be fun as we end the NFL season. Thank you everybody for watching, and goodbye.